Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Moving Spotlight podcast. This is your chance to learn how to take control of your creative career. We discuss the tactics and mindset it takes to elevate your skills and craft in any creative endeavor. Corbin, how'd I do there? Pretty good?
You did pretty good. You've done it better, but you did it pretty good.
Like a 6 or 7. Everybody, we've got a brand new Patreon page. Corbin's trying to loosen me up for this, and I can go loose. I'm trying to keep it tight because I'll go real loose.
Yeah.
We have a brand new Patreon page where you can support us, help us create more great content. But more importantly, please share and give us a review on the podcast so other people can find out about us. Our audience is growing, which is exciting, especially over the holidays. If you're listening to us on podcast, check us out on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a listen, and don't judge where I am or Kimberly are. We're both at undisclosed locations, right, Kimberly?
Yeah.
Our lighting is not our fault. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Keep it top secret. Once again, my name is John Ruby. This is my main man,
Corbin Coyle. Hey, everybody.
Corbin, how'd you sleep?
I slept pretty good. I was one of those dream states where I was in and out. But it was pretty good.
I love it. Usually people just say fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Today we're excited to have the wonderful, fabulous, talented Kymberly Harris. Kimberly is a director, writer, and founder of First Hand Films. Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And congratulations on this. This is a very cool thing.
Thank you, Kimberly. It is it's a labor of love, but I appreciate you saying that. And one of the wonderful things about it is we get to hang out with people like you. So thank you for being here, taking some time out of your day. Kimberly, we want to ask you and dive right in. You are full on a actor's director, right? You are, that's when I think of you, I think of that. Where does that come from? It's a big question, but I want to see where you want to start with it, because I think that's one of my favorite things about knowing you and your work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have so much respect for that actor's craft, because that was my first passion. I did my first play when I was 6 years old, and then acted nonstop until about 5 years ago. And I would say that I was acting every single day. I also grew up with, my parents are professors and scholars and academics. So rather than taking a traditional route of an actor and, maybe finishing college and then just going into your supportive acting classes, I got my BA, then that wasn't enough. Then I got my MA, then that wasn't enough. Then I got my MFA, then that wasn't enough. I got another MFA, that wasn't enough. So it's just this constant diving into the craft of acting and practicing it and practicing it and practicing it. And what that does do is just give you so much respect, mostly in practice more than in studying, but, just for the vulnerability it takes, for the preparation it takes to really live a role. And so I know that myself. I've done it. I've succeeded. I've failed. I've risked. So when everything sort of morphed into directing, I really want to hold space for that. And also, I think it's a collaboration. Great actors know their own impulses, and when they bring them, that is the music, right? That's the jazz. I want to make sure that I have that collaboration, because it's just going to lift everything up. So, a lot of it is just really understanding quite profoundly what actors are doing.
Do you find, is there like a phrase or a fun thing you like to use every time when you take off your director's cap and then you go into acting mode when you're talking to an actor? Like, is there some way that you communicate very effectively every time, or is it kind of just different depending on the script?
Well, it's interesting. I've directed a lot of play. It's project by project, and each actor is different. So, it really depends on the world that we're creating together and what they need. Mm-hmm. Because, some actors don't need a lot of communication. Mm-hmm. We prep together, we get on the same page in a very specific way. And then, some actors really lean on me and really want to talk a lot. And so I like to stay flexible and open to what the moment, requires.
Amazing. Yeah, you really are director's actor. I love it. You're just like listening. It's so nice.
Kimberly, yeah, I love that. When actors audition for you, what are things you look for?
Well, for me, the best advice that I could ever give an actor is to personally connect to the material. So, when I'm in auditions, if I feel the actor, if I feel that the actor is living the role, and if they're bringing their own perspective, and, they understand the story very well, they understand the moments very well, they do that breakdown that is, of course, as you know, required. But then if there's that moment of surprise and illumination about the material, John, can I tell a story about you?
No, I've been waiting. It's been like, we're too far in without you telling a story. I've been waiting.
Well, I just remember, I had the pleasure of working with you on our bi-coastal reimagining of Fool for Love, which is still one of just the best experiences I've had in theater. I loved that. And, I remember, we auditioned so many people for that because it was such a big undertaking. And I remember when you came in, there was something about, and I really remember it in your eyes, strangely. The eyes are the mirrors to the soul, actors, really, especially in film, but really across the board. If someone's eyes are alive, it means that their inner life is engaged and there's a lot going on, and the opposite. But I just remember you were doing a scene with May, and it was like your heart broke. I could just feel it, but it wasn't played. It just occurred. And it made me feel, such connection and empathy, and also illuminated a kind of sensitivity for that character, which I think, was something that you brought. I mean, I wanted it. I would have encouraged it, but it's not necessarily on the page, that he's this sort of tender person. Yeah. It's on the page that he's not sophisticated. But the tenderness was something that, for whatever reason you came to and you understood in that moment. And that, that sent me over the edge.
Well, thank you. I do remember that audition specifically. And I think when you talk about that, it is from your perspective, it's obviously, I always think it's like, they need to fulfill the role and hopefully they bring something kind of special to it, those two things. So it's like, I need that role fulfilled. And then that something special, usually is kind of unique to that actor. If those two things happen, it's like, you're in a great place. And it's interesting you say that, Kimberly, because I remember in that audition specifically feeling a response from you of like, oh, she's excited about what I'm doing. She's encouraging, and I think that's one of the things I try also to remind actors is like, know that the casting, they want you to be awesome. They want you to be amazing. And sometimes it's hard to know and feel that if like they're grumpy or they're hungry or they're seeing a lot of people or they don't have the time in a sense, but they do. Most times when I've been on the casting side, they want you to they want to get excited, and so I love hearing that, Kimberly, because the fact that you were like, hey, I'm excited. This is an actor I want to work with. I felt that, which was really cool. And it helped, I think, if you get a redirect or even if it's just the audition, that helps fuel an actor so they know, okay, because, Kimberly, I'm also thinking it's really challenging now with a lot of people that have self-tapes or doing things at home. You don't really know if you're heading in the right direction. Right. I mean, you kind of do, but it helps when you've got that person to person, and I think that's one thing that you're really, really great at. What for you, Kimberly, has kind of opened up your senses? How do you get so like connected and in tune? I feel like that's one thing, like even with what Corbin asked, you mentioned some interesting words of like risk and illuminating. What for you kind of, has kind of raised your senses or your radar, for directing and acting? I'm curious.
Yeah. I mean, speaking to actors first, I think, what we want is to believe you in the role. And that's, that is a venture of mind, body, spirit, all coming together, right? And voice and imagination. I mean, the actors' work, again, going back to, actors respecting what they're doing, and also, me having great respect for the craft, is that you're using yourself as your instrument. So tuning everything and really asking all of the questions that the script poses to yourself is going to align you with the role so you can fully live it and inhabit it. And then when we, on the other side are watching you on Zooms, when we have these, breakdown auditions, I've watched hundreds of auditions on screen, so what's going to break through is if I believe you in the role, and that's only going to happen if you believe you in the role. So in terms of, tuning up for that, for me, yoga and meditation is very helpful. I just spent 4 days on a yoga meditation retreat, and they even made us unplug. So I didn't even have my cell phone.
Crazy, yeah.
But we're so addicted in this culture to going outside of ourselves for, gratification. And the actor has to be able to, make contact with what's actually going on with you. You have to have that skill set. That's something. So anything you can do, breathing, of course. I mean, the most profound things sound very simple, but really getting in touch with your breath and really, first and foremost, asking yourself, what's going on with me today? How do I actually feel? And instead of, compartmentalizing like you have to do in the real world all the time, before you go into your work, you want to get in tune with yourself, because then you'll be fully bringing yourself to whatever is going on with you. So I like, yoga and meditation because it forces you into the moment, into silence, into connecting with your breath. And, reading. I think reading as much as you can is great advice for actors, reading to yourself, reading out loud, reading screenplays, reading with friends, reading plays. And I had a mentor tell me early on, connect to the love. So what do you love, and what does your character love? What does my character love? Even if they're a serial killer, what do they love? Because love is a really engaging energy, and it kind of does something to you.
Totally. And there's a couple things in there to unpack. One is when you mentioned simple does not mean easy. I love that, Kimberly. Simple does not mean easy, right? In fact, sometimes simple can be
usually
very
the
hard.
opposite.
Usually the opposite. And so I think that's a wonderful thing to remember of, like, sometimes the simple things, and connecting with the love is great, because the other thing I like about that is it makes it active. So I think sometimes there's certain things where we make passive choices, or we can get passive, or you want to respond, but if you're always responsive, you want to figure out. And so going from like the place of what do you love makes that character, that actor active, which I think is great, because then you're going towards something.
Yeah. And I really want to piggyback off of that, because I think the thing I find myself teaching as much as anything is urgency. That urgency really breaks through. What are your stakes and how can you turn them up? We can always turn them down.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But if you're dropped in and you're plugged in and you're going for something that you need really specifically and turning it up all the way, that's going to break through. No one's paying money to see a bunch of people being casual. Don't be casual.
Yeah.
No, you're and Kimberly, one of the things I just found recently that I love is like the stuff we hide in life is the stuff we should use as actors.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so,
100%.
Right. So a lot of the stuff out there where we're like, I can't get angry at my boss. I can't do this. I can't show shame. I can't show embarrassment or whatever those things are like that. That's the stuff actually that's like the gold with what you're talking about. It's casual out there. We have to keep it casual to like, get through our days. But when you're working on the craft, I think that's what you were saying is a great point of, no one wants to watch, I always say like people make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in real time. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe there's a couple people, but it's just not, there's nothing, it's not exciting. Yeah, exactly. There's no drama.
But think about that. If Joaquin is making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in real time, what's going to actually be going on?
That's true. That's
you know what I mean?
Actually, I would watch him. Make it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because somehow he's going to find the urgency.
It's true.
Yeah. I always tell actors, be polite before action, be polite to each other, but do not be a polite actor. Let your fear of what other people are going to think of you, your politeness, your manners go. Right.
Corbin, I want to ask you a question, which usually doesn't happen because I love that, Kimberly. Corbin, when you first started out, I feel like that was one of the things that you were like figuring out how to get to that line, right? And like creeping towards it and stuff. So what was kind of on your journey finding that and like crossing into that threshold? How did it?
Yeah, it's funny that you say. I was thinking that. I was going back to the moment I was like, I was playing with acting. I was like doing okay, and I was just like, I don't know, I'm not hitting it. I don't know what that is. And then there was a moment where it was an angry scene and there was a chair and you told me, you're just like, just get angry. And I just basically was like, fuck it. And I just started punching the chair, just getting so mad, and then went into the scene. And it was just, I didn't realize like that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants you just to kind of let loose and like kind of see the raw, exactly what you're saying. What you usually hide in like life. You want to see that on the screen. And I remember that was the dial for me. So like whenever I rehearse, I try to figure out what the extreme is, and like Kimberly, like you said, just pull it back, because you always pull back those layers whenever you want, but it's the hard part's getting to that point. So yeah, that was my big moment. Just anger.
Well, only you can do that. And then it's a surprise, right? If you're trying to figure out some sort of stereotypical idea of what does this casting director like? What does this casting director want? You're giving your creative power away and you're not in it. You're not engaged. But, once you really ask yourself those questions and then respond to that, you're in it, and then turn it up. And then your personal response to the material is going to be unique. No one else is going to do it that way.
Yeah, I love that. I call that an empowered actor, Kimberly. I mean, exactly. Like they've empowered themselves, and then you're open to whatever kind of redirection or feedback, but you've brought in these strong, full life, and to see where that goes. So this is good because this walks us close to. I know you teach and have studied like Lee Strasberg, and I know that gets connected with everyone throws around method acting, and I'm sure you've heard or talked about. I'm just curious your opinion on that or that world, or when they're kind of lumped together, or if you lump them, put them together. I don't know. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think every good actor is a method actor, but I'm also aware that it has connotations because I don't think people really understand what it is. I mean, let's go back. Like you were talking about, behaving privately in public. That's Stanislavski. That's the private moment exercise, which I always do in my workshops because it's just the most revealing experience for actors he calls it public solitude. Think of 3 things that your character would do. It's a character private moment that your character would do that if someone walked in the room, you would die. And suddenly you're risking personally, and you're also learning about who your character is, your inner life of the character. But all this to say, Stanislavski, an actor prepares I have read it ridiculous amount of times, and I always get something out of it. And this is the translation, the English translation. I can't even imagine what it'd be in Russian, but he's so articulate about the actor's instrument and giving tools. And all of our great, teachers that have passed down these techniques that we used came from the group theater, which was formed off of Stanislavski's writing. So Meisner, Adler, and Strasberg were all together creating brilliantly for several years before they split off. And method in a nutshell is, finding the truth and, finding, how you can truthfully interpret imaginary circumstances and what to concentrate on in order to do that. So, Meisner wonderfully has certain concentrations. Adler wonderfully, it was apparently brilliant at script analysis, which of course is very important. Mm-hmm. And with Strasberg, you also have the option of the sensory work, which I have found to be really essential in certain circumstances. Mm-hmm. One easy example is, let's say you're playing an alcoholic, I think that's really hard. Kirsten Dunst in Power of the Dog, she just did it brilliantly. She was playing a woman who was progressively drinking a lot.
I was just thinking that movie, Kimberly. It's so funny you said that. I was thinking real quick, because what's interesting is I'm curious to hear your opinion. I really liked a lot of it. I thought there were some moments where they could have had more private moments where we could have learned a little bit more. I mean, there were some, but there were there was so much going on there. There was so much happening. My gosh. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. But that's so funny you said that movie. Yeah. I was just thinking of that.
Well, that was a very, I know Benedict Cumberbatch stayed in character the whole time.
Yeah.
They used a lot of these techniques to open up the unconscious and bring that into the world. So, in certain circumstances, it's really helpful to have that sensory work. It can be really evocative for the actor. And in other circumstances, if you're auditioning for a commercial or, a sitcom, that might be a little much, so it's just good to have different tools, because you're doing, if you're lucky, you're doing such a range of material, and to stay open-minded, so that if something comes in that's necessary, that can be really helpful to you. Okay, I'm going to try that,
Well, I think those tools can help bridge the gaps sometimes, Kimberly. If you feel like, oh, I'm here and I'm trying to get there, and if you don't have the tools or the options of things to try to kind of, bridge that, you sometimes, you can feel that as an actor or whatever, or, you can feel that the director, it's just like you're not there, and so how do you get there? And I love that with what you're talking about with that. Yeah. I think that's so. When you teach these things, are there exercises, Kimberly, that you like to give people that kind of seem to spark things? Like, do you like to dive into the script analysis? Do you like to give them stuff for the body? For like, where do you kind of like to go when you're teaching and stuff?
We go everywhere. I have 3 clients that I won't say their names, but you would know them. And so basically what we do is we work on, they're on a TV show or they're on a movie. So depending on, one of them, we just did an animal exercise. So I don't know if you've heard of the animal work.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. So basically, I don't know. Did you see Foxcatcher with
Yes.
And
yes. The wrestling one. Yeah.
The wrestling one. And then did you see Nightcrawler?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah.
So in Foxcatcher, Mark Ruffalo and Channing Tatum did animal work, and in Nightcrawler, Jake Gyllenhaal did animal work. And apparently England has caught on, because now that all The Crown is doing it. But basically what you're doing is the cast of The Crown,
Mm-hmm.
that you study an animal and you really embody the animal. You really sort of become the animal, like you were a little kid. I'm a wolf or whatever, but you're studying them. You're studying their habits. You're studying their behavior, how they use their body, how they use their eyes, if they're a predator, what are they thinking about? And it helps you get into your instincts. But when you stand the animal up, suddenly you have found behavior and a way to hold your body, move your body, etc., that you would have never come up with as in your human imagination. So if you go back and watch Foxcatcher, Mark Ruffalo is a gorilla. He's a gorilla. I mean, he's just flat out a gorilla. If you watch, he's a human, but he's got the posture. He's doing the scratching. He's, the whole thing. If you watch Nightcrawler, Jake is a coyote. His eyes, are wide open. The way he's, and in that performance, I have to say it's some of the best animal work I've seen, because he really took on the psychology of the animal as well. He turned the animal way up. So I do these animal workshops, and depending on the character, maybe you're just using one thing that you found at the end, just the way your eyes gaze, or the way you're holding yourself, or your rhythm or something, or your voice. But then, in that case, for example, he turned it way up. So he was like 90%.
This reminds me of Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs too. He was doing like Lizard, right? Or wasn't there like some sort of, and when you know that and you see it, you go, oh my God, yes. Like this, it completely explains everything.
And you don't want to know it, right? And
no.
I'm like, guys, these things I'm telling you are a secret. You do not have to tell people what you're doing, because you don't know. You just attribute it to some kind of genius. That's so brilliant. How did that actor come up with that? And I like that. I prefer that. Mm-hmm. I don't want you guys to give your secrets away.
No, don't give the secrets away. And I love it. And I'm also thinking about what that does is it leads to behavior. And behavior is such an interesting thing where our eyes are so good with, we follow the behavior. That's what we're really watching, where you watch like a great scene and sometimes you can't even remember barely any of the lines, but you remember the behavior that was happening, and I think with what you're saying, it also, the animal work, Kimberly, it can lead to like spontaneous behavior, and that's really exciting and interesting, not only for the director, but also for an actor. That's why when I tell Corbin, he's like, I want to be a cow again. I'm like, cow is not an interesting animal choice, Corbin. They're not very active. But it makes me think of, I remember, first of all, Hand of Power of the Dog, it did remind me a lot of Fool for Love. I thought of that, the play we did together, Kimberly. There's a lot of elements of that. But I remember when we first started rehearsal for Fool for Love, the play that Kimberly directed that I was in, Corbin, I would take a lot of chances. I would do a lot of behavior, and Kim would be like, what are you doing? Nope, stop, that's done. And then she'd be like, no, what is it? Oh, I like that. Okay, keep it. But there was the behavior was, the lines were already written, and in a sense, like there was a lot there, but kind of finding the behavior was part of the fun journey that I think was really cool to explore. That's not really kind of written out on the page. The lines are written out there. The story is kind of written out there. So the actor, one of the great things they can bring besides themselves and the emotion, all those things, is like the behavior. And I think that's like, you mentioned Joaquin. I mean, you think of the Joker or whatever, and the behavior in that movie is just wacky, but in an awesome way, really unique, specific, intriguing way, and I think that's a really cool. So I love that, Kimberly. I love bringing up the animal exercise, because I think that's a great way to unlock that.
And kind of in that same world, Kimberly, do you ever, when you're writing or directing, do you use that kind of animal work? Like when you're writing the script in the beginning, are you kind of imagining how you kind of want this person to be, or do you like to be surprised, like you're saying, or how do you like to dive into that?
Well, for me, behavior is only interesting. Like the Joker is one of my favorite performances. And, for example, that operatic dancing that he went into, I know that came out of the moment, and behavior is only interesting if it doesn't come from here. Like I don't ascribe to, okay, it's going to be really interesting if I do this. I think that can be disconnected. Again, going back to, believing that the character is a three-dimensional human being, right? But, for that, I know that came out of what I call, his inner life. He had developed this very layered inner life, and then he just felt like doing that. So when you can create an atmosphere for an actor that the behavior comes out of an impulse, that's when you're going to get the real genius, because that's when the unconscious is sort of feeding the conscious mind. And like John said, that's the actor's job, right? Is to bring the words to life. It's interesting because I guess I'll just tell you guys, I'll just admit my private moment, which is that I think because I acted all my life, what happens to me when I'm writing is it's a kind of channeling that's happening. And I don't know if it's that I'm acting all the characters in some way, but I just trust it because it's working, right now. But certainly getting myself into a relaxed space. So, my son makes fun of me because if I'm in the zone and he even walks in the room, it's ruined. I mean, I need a lot of quiet and concentration to drop in, so certainly that, again, this, opening up to, sometimes, how first thing in the morning when you wake up and you're still in that sort of dream state, sometimes I think that's when we're our most open, and relaxed, and things can come through. And as a director, it's really, I prep. And then when I get there, it's really about seeing what's needed in the moment, and intuition is so important for all of us in all the crafts, trusting your gut, trusting your intuition.
And I really liked how because I think the best scripts are when they're not directorial, like they write it in a way that's like, here's the framework, but you can kind of bring what you want. And I love what you said earlier, which is, I'm gonna start doing this too. It's like asking those questions for yourself. I was doing that instinctively, but I didn't actually know that. That phrase to me is beautiful. I think that's such a great way to frame what you're looking at for the script, because all you can do is bring yourself, and it goes into your eyes. It goes into all the things that you're doing. And I think that's why I was curious how you write, because I was wondering what's the framework and what do you do to be able to write something so psychologically thrilling, but it's hard to do that. That's a fine line. Once again, it's simple, but not easy.
Yeah. And I wanted
the other thing on that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Did I just interrupt you?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I
Zoom life. It's all right.
Zoom. The other, what was I just thinking about? Oh, the other thing about the method that I love is, research. That's a big tenet of, what they call method acting, is that, you listen, if I don't know a space that I'm writing about, I go visit it, because I don't want to guess. I don't want to be offensive, to the people that, and for example, with Fool for Love, May, I call them Medi, like Brangelina. May and Eddie went to Montana.
I love that.
They went to Montana because they grew up in a trailer park, and these two actors have never seen a trailer park. So we are going to Montana, and that research helped them so much because they were able to really understand, their characters' situations, how they grew up and everything like that. So that research can really be so helpful. Going back to Jake, he drove he rode around with the police for End of Watch, stuff like that can be really informative.
I love that. And Kimberly, one of the things I was thinking about when you were saying those things is how you are very I consider you like a doer, like you're doing things, you're creating things, you're writing, which is I love that. I mean, I'm always striving to do, and I try to encourage people to create things, because you don't know, you can put a lot of time into this film and it can be great, or it can be, bad, but at least you made it, and at least you created it, versus, you talked about it and then nothing happened. So that's how you got to kind of continue to churn. I wanted to ask you about the short I Heard Sarah and kind of how that came about and kind of how you worked with the actors. Your son was part of that too, right? Yeah. So I just am curious because that was something that you that you directed and, created. And so I just, maybe kind of inspiration for other future directors that want to, get things moving, like how that kind of came about.
Yeah. Very organically. It's actually my first feature. It's a feature.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah.
Feature. Great. Yes.
And we just got a sales agent. And so hopefully it will be available. It won't be in the theaters. It was a feature that I shot in 7 days for $200,000.
What?
Wow.
And, when you see it, I don't think that at least the feedback has been really, that was how much it cost, because listen, exactly what you're talking about. We got one of Elton John's mansions on Sunset. We shot at the PCH. The locations are gorgeous. And it was just a lot of artists coming together with, a lot of passion and using their skills. And what I got to do in that experience is, I'm attached to direct 3 features of much bigger budgets right now. But that gave me that experience of, I wanted to direct a feature. I wanted to see it through. I wanted to. And so I didn't wait like you sometimes have to do, for years and years and years. I just, like yourself, really value being proactive and keeping myself alive and learning and growing and creative. So that came out of an actor that I was working with. I was coaching, and he had a personal story, and it was really compelling and personal. And we started developing it just as a story. And then it sort of felt like a short. And then it sort of felt like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we have more than a short here. And, he had an ability to finance, he had a connection that wanted to support him in that way, which is a big help.
Definitely can help. Yes.
And, I just pulled together the best people that I knew. And then, Ethan, my son, who's I just love his work so much. We gave him just a line, I just said, listen, he can play. And then it just kept growing because it was I used a lot of improvisation in the piece, and he's good at improvisation. So they were like, give him more.
I love it.
Yeah.
But, Kimberly, with that, I guess and that's 100% what I was thinking about. But you and that actor started getting it going, and then pieces started to come in. And I'm sure pieces probably fell out and then came back, but it took some momentum, and that's what helped get it going. But, a lot of times it's like maybe you and that actor driving that train, and that can feel like a lot, and it does take a lot, and I think that's where you're saying, like, you can wait for things, and sometimes you have to for a project, if you're waiting for a certain actor or things like that, but also kind of driving that train. I kind of, sometimes I call it like, it's like good stress. You're putting stress on yourself because you're like, I really want to make this feature, but it is stressful. It is work, but when you get that momentum going, then pieces start to come in that maybe you didn't expect, or, that work out. Oh, we got this location, we got this. And that kind of happened because, you and that actor started driving that train, so I love hearing that. That's great.
Well, I'm always, when you're working so hard all the time, and so much of the work is solitary, I always feel like I'm just starving for more good partners. I always, because it helps so much to have that, even if it's one person that you're leaning on to, really make something happen, rather than feeling like you're doing it by yourself. And I think that's sort of the plight of what we do, because so much of the work is solitary. And then
you can feel like you're in a silo kind of by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like where's the collaboration? Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's great.
Let me get a little gushy, but like working with John on this podcast, like it definitely, like having somebody who like compliments you as well. Like we both are picking up the pieces, and it's really important to have that, because it's so hard. Like I could only imagine doing a podcast by yourself. It's just like, there's a million and one things that we aren't doing, and we have two people doing it, right? And if you're a director, writer, actor, like all the things get so complicated so quickly, and it's kind of taking those wins and taking those losses where you can, and having somebody who can be there with you and go like, yeah, that's a loss, but that's all right. That's a good thing,
Totally. If you're maybe up and they're down, or they're, they're down, and I think it's like, I used to say my wife and I, Kimberly, were opposites, which we are, but I also say now we're complementary. Right. And so, what we say is like, Annie's really great at planning for the moment, and I'm great at enjoying the moment. And those work really well together. Those work really well together. I know it works really well together. And it's funny because it happens with Corbin too, where I'm like, Corbin, we got to do these 1,000 other things. He's like, what's the thing you call creep or something? And Corbin's like, let's just do this
Scope
one
creep.
thing. Yeah. Scope creep. He calls it scope creep because my scope Kimberly gets wider and wider. He's like, let's just focus on it. I'm like, good point. And then let's do it. So then we do it. But it's like, I think that's with what you're talking about, Kimberly, finding great partners is one of the greatest, actually it's one of the greatest things you can do, because it's also, that's part of the journey, right? The journey you go on with those people. Hopefully the end thing is something, but in the business we're in, you don't always know. You can work your butt off and a play can not do well. You can work your butt off and a play can be great. And so I think that journey is where you're spending a lot of your time. So hopefully it's with people that, you enjoy working with, and you're working together in a positive way and pushing each other. Right.
But it's very easy. I would say, the biggest mistakes I've made have been when I haven't, when I've made a decision for the wrong reason. I made a decision because someone was really shiny, or I made a decision because I thought my manager would really like that decision. I made a decision because I thought the industry would really like that decision, and it's so important to what you're saying. Every single person, you want to have like-minded people around you, and not compromise on that, do your due diligence, really ask yourself, just what kind of energy does this bring to me? Does this make me feel creative? Do I feel open? Do I feel like I can trust this? Listen to that, because that's, I think, what's going to give you, a satisfying experience in everything that you do, if you really take that seriously.
Yeah. I love that. I was thinking just when you were saying that, Kimberly, just with your directing, there's obviously on-set experience. What about, and your history in acting, are there any like directing? I mean, I know you mentioned Stanislavski's book. Are there any like directing books you really like? I feel like those are a little harder to find, I mean, a little more challenging, but I don't know if any of those jump out at you, like, because for people that are, I think now is a great time for, to be a director or a writer, director, actor, director, if you want, but it's like, if people are still kind of learning about that, what would you, besides being on set, what else, kind of would you advise?
Yeah. I mean, in my grad programs, we read so many wonderful books, about directing. Like I remember there's one, Directors on Directors, and it will take you from, just if there's a chapter from the voice of many, many, many different directors. And, I love Elia Kazan's book on directing.
What's that book?
But I've been doing recently, not to sound non-literary, but I am just devouring directors' podcasts. I love the directors' podcast. There's just, you can't imagine. There's directors on directing. There's, there's of course the variety roundtables with all of the current directors that are talking about their projects. But I find that to be really insightful for now, because, a lot of the directors that are directing now don't have a book. You know what I mean?
Yep, true. Good point.
So I want to hear what Jane Campion did. I want to hear what Maggie Gyllenhaal did. I want to hear, how they approached their movies now.
That's great. You know what I love about that is, uh, I was just talking to a buddy, one of the, sorry, I'm laughing because, when I first moved to LA, I studied at Playhouse West, which is Meisner, and they had a reading list. And I don't think that reading list has changed in like 40 years. So that's the reason I'm laughing. Um, so please, Playhouse West people, don't get mad. But most of their books are way old.
I'm with you.
And the thing is, and so by having something current, I think is great. And that's really interesting, Kimberly, because that's, when I worked a lot, like in commercial casting and stuff, people would ask about commercial casting classes. And I was like, well, try to find like, either a session director or a casting director that's like currently casting, not like a ton changes. Like a lot of some things are the same, but like you want someone that's current with the pulse. And so I love what you're saying. That's one of the nice things about a podcast is like, you're getting what's going on and what they're using right now, what's available, what the technology is, where they're using it or not using it. I think that's lovely. I think that's great. So sorry. And then did you say one of the pocket, is it called Directing on Directing? I'm just curious because
yeah, Directors on Directing.
Directors on Directing. Yep.
I'll email you when I open my phone back up, my director's library. It's just beautiful, fascinating.
Yeah.
And like you said too, the cameras are different than they were 50 years ago. And but it really is inspiring. It's educational, but a lot of times it's just kind of comforting and inspiring.
Yes. Totally. It's kind of like, it can be kind of like a recharge thing in a sense of like, okay, let me get some idea. Oh, that's giving me ideas that could be part of that or something totally different. And Kimberly, bringing it full circle, what it reminds me of is like, I remember when I was playing my best basketball, I was living, breathing, sleeping basketball. I was marinating in basketball. And I think that's one of the things that like, and it's because I loved it too. But I think, and now with what you're talking about, it's like you kind of have to live and breathe and sleep it for a while, maybe not all the time. So you're going crazy, but you really do kind of have to, get into it and be listening because it is really competitive and people are really good. And so you have to find what excites you. And I feel like a podcast, Kimberly, for you, like I saw your eyes light up because you're like, oh, this is good. This is, but this is great. This is current is what I want. And I think that's important, although if it's drudgery all the time, that can be pretty rough,
I was just listening to a podcast with Tom Hanks and he was talking about his directing versus acting. And he's like, I like directing, but he said that you have to do the thing that you love. Because if you don't love it, it's going to be hard, like directing was very hard for him. Acting comes super naturally for him. I mean, I'm sure he's put a lot of work in, but it's like exactly as you're talking about, you have to like live and breathe it, better love it. And I think that's an important aspect of it.
Yes.
It's
and
for sure.
That can change. You keep checking in with yourself. That can change. Sorry, John.
No, I think that's great. That can change. And I think it's okay. And it can kind of expand if you're like, well, I'm a director, but then you're like, well, maybe I'll try writing. I think that's okay too. No, what I was going to say is, I was just thinking about like opportunities and when they come and who you want to work with. And so like whenever Kimberly calls me, Corbin, I answer the phone. I'm like, what's going on? And one of the lovely times when she called me, I just wanted to share this was, she's like, John, do you want to do a table read for this play or something? I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I'm in, She's like, also you'll be reading with Al Pacino. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll be there. And that experience was one of those things. And the reason I bring that up is not to name drop, which I did, but also to say, what happened at that table read is no different than table reads I've done at my apartment with a couple other actor buddies, gals and friends. Do you know what I'm saying? It's the exact same thing. There was no difference. There was literally, there's really no difference, And so the reason I say that is like, there's nothing stopping you from getting a group together, people you love, putting together a play, putting it up. There's nothing stop you from getting your iPhone, shooting some stuff. Like all that stuff is readily available. And I feel like, I guess what I'm saying is when that opportunity knocks on the door, I feel like Kimberly, you are like stepping in that door whenever you can. Mm-hmm. And that's why you've got, firsthand films and you're directing and you've done acting. I think that's really, really great. And it's really inspiring and teaching. And it's not easy to do, but like continue to step in, gets you in great projects, gets you great opportunities. Right.
I actually kind of want to piggyback because I'm curious about firsthand films. Like, how did you what was that journey like starting that? And like, also, why did you start it? Like, was there something in that moment that you needed to kind of make an LLC to fund something, or like what was that journey? Because it's so, once again, you're such a doer, and I don't know how you do it. So you have so many things on your plate.
Yeah, I'm. Some people criticize that, but we don't.
Mm-mm. No, I love it.
We don't criticize that.
No.
I'm obsessed.
Is this Ethan? Is this your son? Is your son listening?
Ethan?
No, he's over by you.
Okay, gotcha.
Right. Yeah, my first short. One of my MFAs is in playwriting. So I've always, theater is always my first love. And a couple from Zurich, they had taken one of my workshops online, and they said, they knew I was a writer, and they said, do you have any plays that we could turn into a film, hopefully a short, because we want to act in something. And I said, you know what, I have this play that when it did really well, it won some awards in New York, but people often said that could be a film. Do you want to read it? And then they read it and they said, okay, well, we want to do this. It's a 3-person. So we just had to cast one other character, and there was a couple in it, and they were a couple. I was like, okay, great. And they said, and we want you to direct it. And at this point, I had not even considered filmmaking as
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, oh my God. And this is through email. And then I was talking to my mom, and I told her, and I said, I'm not a film director. And she was like, you say yes. Oh my God. She's like, why can't you just say yes? And so I listened to her and I said yes. And it was the funniest thing, because then all of these different skill sets had a place to all live as one. And then I have not stopped directing since. I mean, it was actually quite meant to be. And I had to start firsthand films because something around, their funding and my funding, I had to have something in place here. But it's been really handy to have a production company, because then I've been producing out of that entity now. So yeah, it just came through that process.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's a lot of work, but it kind of seems like it's growing, which is amazing too. Like it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, accounting and stuff like that is not my forte. My mother will never talk me into that. Let's put it that way.
Just do it. Just do accounting.
No. Yeah.
Well, I want to kind of wrap things up here and just say, when we did Fool for Love, Corbin, Kimberly was in the audience every night.
Wow. As
a director, as a support team, as a cheerleader in the best way. And I just want to say, if as probably one of the most committed director teachers that I've worked with, I think is, Kimberly, you're amazing in that sense, like when you're committed to something, you are in it 110%. And I think that's really a lovely, lovely quality. So I just, share that with the listeners, share that with you. And just want to say it's such a pleasure to have you here, and just let people know that.
Oh, thank you, John. It was
welcome.
Such a pleasure to work with your talent.
Wow.
Such a pleasure to work with your talent.
It needs work. There's just a little bit there. So you really got to build it as much as you can. But no, it was lovely working together and to continue to work together. That's another thing. Kimberly we've stayed in contact, which I think is, if you find people that you're artists you connect with, try to stay in contact, even when life kind of leads you other directions for a while. I think that's really great. And I think that's okay. They don't have to be in your life every day to still be people you want to collaborate with,
Absolutely.
Right. So, Kimberly, thank you so much for all your wisdom. And, like I said, I would always recommend you for any project as a director if anyone ever asked me. So thank you so much and teacher. So thank you so much for being here.
And well, thank you so much. It was such a wonderful way to start my day.
Great. Awesome. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us on the Moving Spotlight podcast.
Thanks so much.
Yes. Congratulations, guys, on this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Moving Spotlight podcast. Try to change it up there, Corbin.
Thank you. Hey there, boo-boo.
Hey, boo-boo. Please rate and review us on your podcast app of choice.
And we're on YouTube, so please like and subscribe there. Hit the bell. Do all the things. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we'd love your support. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for listening to the
Moving Spotlight podcast.